This video is gonna be a lot different than the other videos I made. Here's your spoiler warning. 3, 2, 1. We are first introduced to Hodoka, a scrappy-looking high school student running away from his hometown to look for life in the big city. But things are tougher in the city than anticipated, so he turns to the wise advice of Yahoo Answers? Really? Alright. So he's starving and sleeping in the streets, and he just happens to find a gun. Now if you didn't know, Japan is very harsh on guns, where just possessing a gun can get you 10 years in prison, and firing one can get you life. So, like any rational person, he...
Nigga, don't do that, that's 5 to 10.
There was this guy at the beginning named Keisuke that saved Hodoka's life because he wanted to stay on the ferry deck in the middle of a rainstorm. Keisuke told Hodoka to contact him in the city if he ever needs help. Hodoka finds Keisuke in his small rundown apartment. He offers Hodoka a job to help him write and research articles for his urban legend magazine. The first task is to research rumors of a sunshine girl, a girl with the power to change the weather and clear the skies from rain. He sees a girl being coerced to work in a back alley club, so he gets ready to kick some ass and save Milady. So he's going to jail for life. So he takes Milady and bolts it from the club owners to an abandoned building. The girl's name is Hina Amano, and she shows Hodoka her amazing ability of clearing the skies with her prayers. Hina has been living alone with her younger brother Nagi for a year since her mother died, and there is no one else to take care of them. She just got fired at McDonald's and needs to find a way to make money fast. So Hodoka decides to pimp her out to Craigslist to perform her magic for 5,000 yen? Really, Hodoka? Really? You mean this girl that has the power of a god, and you're going to charge a week's worth of groceries to split the skies open? How are you this stupid? How? So anyways, their business takes off. They are booked with Hina just pumping out her magic. Meanwhile, Keisuke is still doing his job investigating the Sunshine Girl and the weird weather patterns. Yeah, no shit. They visit a shrine and interview an old man that explains the history of the Weather Maidens. Years ago, the Weather Maidens would clear the skies from rain and destructive weather, but they would eventually be sacrificed in order to appease the gods for clear weather. The police track down Hodoka to Hina's apartment, which is a problem for two minors living alone. They make a run for it, but the weather has created a powerful storm causing freak rainfall and snowfalls in the middle of August. They manage to find shelter in a hotel, where Hina reveals to Hodoka that her body is becoming more and more transparent, and she'll eventually have to be sacrificed to stop the freak storm. The next morning, Hina is gone, the weather is clear, and Hodoka gets taken into police custody. Hodoka manages to escape and run towards the abandoned building Hina got her powers from. Keisuke is waiting for Hodoka there, and tries to convince him to stop. The police catch up to them, and Hodoka pulls out a gun on the police and Keisuke. Okay, I'm gonna stop here. So, Keisuke is the best character in this movie. You can fight me on this. He's the only one with a legitimate story. He had a wife and kid, but his wife died and his kid is sick with asthma and being held from him by his mother-in-law because Keisuke is a bad role model in her eyes. So Keisuke has been kicked around in the press and just trying to get by with the cards he's been dealt with, and he finds this little runaway who he takes in, feeds him, shelters him, and generally cares enough about him to give him the best advice possible. So how does Hodoka repay him? By pointing a gun at him. What the fuck? Fuck you, Hodoka, you little shit. So Hodoka manages to escape and climb to the rooftop, entering the Tori Gate. He is transported to the world above the skies where Hina is being sacrificed. He calls out to her, telling her to forget about the weather and come back to the world, even if the weather remains crazy. They return to the rooftop with all of Tokyo raining. Everyone is arrested, Hina and Niga are taken away by the social services. Hodoka returns back to his hometown to be on probation for 3 years.
Alright, hold up!
This movie is aimed at young adults and children. So, this movie is telling us that if you find a gun, keep it, fire it, and pointing it at police officers, you will get 3 years of probation? Shinkai, what are you trying to teach today's youth? So 3 years pass and we see Hodoka leaving again for Tokyo.
Hold up!
Okay, this is a guy that ran away, pointed a gun at multiple police officers, ran through the city on train tracks, and fell through the sky to save his girl, but I'm supposed to believe that for 3 years, he never attempted to contact Hina or Keisuke. He never tried to escape and visit her, and just decided, okay, I'm gonna be a good boy now. So Hodoka returns to Tokyo. Half the city is submerged from the continuous rainfall for the past 3 years.
Now hold up!
Okay, so there's this scene in the movie showing Keisuke and his daughter playing in the park. We're told that her asthma is sensitive to the weather, so Keisuke's mother-in-law will only let her play with him when it's not raining. We even see, when the rain finally starts, that she starts coughing and needs her inhaler. It's been 3 years of continuous rainfall, and now we're shown that she's just fine playing in the rain? Like, okay? What was the point of that previous scene then? We're also never shown any major consequences besides the building just being submerged. You know, no economic collapse, no destruction up close, no deaths. There's just no weight to this event of this rain, and I frankly just do not care. Anyways, in a city of 10 million people, Hodoka just happens to find Hina while walking, and the movie ends. Although this movie is 2 hours long, I can say I never felt bored or had a need to drop this movie despite the aspects of the movie that I didn't like. Shinkai understands how to pace a story with stunning visuals and interesting narratives without it feeling too heavy on exposition. I liked how this movie fleshed out its side characters like Keisuke. At first we were introduced to him as an unreliable adult that would take advantage of Hodoka, but slowly reveal he's a man just struggling with the loss of his wife and separation of his daughter, and took pity on Hodoka for reminding of him of the innocence and drive he once had. I enjoyed the music introduced into the second montage, Celebration by Toko Miura. This is a song that I would genuinely listen to outside of watching this movie, and it fits so well with the montage. Sadly, those are the only positives that come to mind, as there are just too many flaws that it's just hard to ignore.
You originally came up with the original idea for what really would do.
年間夏ごとにすごく激しい雨が降るようになったことですね。今天気をテーマにした映画を作るべきだという気持ちにさせられました。
The idea presented here is that climate change at this point is inevitable, and we can't do anything to stop this. The burden of restoring and preserving the current climate we have is cruel to the next generation.
You all come to us young people for hope. How dare you?
I don't know if Shinkai has ever looked into climate change deniers, but the claim that the old man makes in the movie sounds an awful lot like them.
そもそも天気とは天の気分。人の都合など構わず、正常も異常も測れん。
Disputing the technology and data of modern science and relying on theories that the weather has always been fucked. I'm sure Shinkai just meant that the weather is something that humans can't control, and we are just at the mercy if the heavens just want to shit on us for the next couple of years. So the best thing to do as a species is just to adapt to the weather that will come. So I get where Shinkai is coming from, but this shit is so one-dimensional lazy, it's like a child just thought of it. Yes, it's fucked that millennials and Gen Z inherit a world on fire, but to suggest that we can't control the outcome is just a spit in the face of the next generation that will look at us like how we look at boomers right now.
っていうかさ、うちのじいちゃんの話なんかでいいの？ちょっと怪しいと思うけど。
Japan is a collectivist culture where the group is highly valued over the individual, meaning the concept of one sacrifice for the whole is fine by collectivism.
人柱一人で狂った天気が元に戻るんなら、俺は歓迎だけどね。
Going against this and thinking individually is usually classified as antisocial behavior and is criticized for people being selfish. This is an ideology that is rising in Japan amongst the youth because of the connected world of the internet, where people are freely able to speak their mind, where more and more young people are starting to think for themselves instead of following the conservative traditionalist mindset of the past generations. This is shown as Hodoka defies his parents, Keisuke's advice, police orders, and chases after Hina, and the dramatic climax of bringing Hina back to Earth, allowing the weather to return to its chaotic state.
その息苦しさの中でみんな若い人たちは生きているから、そういう本当に自分の大事なことを誰にも遠慮しないで叫ぶような主人公の姿を描いてみたいと思いました。
Maybe it's because Shinkai has only ever lived in a collectivist society like Japan, so he views anything against that ideology with rose-tinted glasses, but it is certainly not the most productive way to fix the problems of society.
Time for want our state to be opened up. We're tired of not being able to buy the things that we need, go to the hairdressers, get our hair done. It's time to open up.
Collectivism is not the best solution to the world's problems either, as many who fall through the cracks are isolated and thrown away, but instead it requires a mixture of looking out for the group and respecting people's individuality as long as it does not affect anyone else. I mean, currently in the US, we are in a never-ending pandemic because people think their individuality trumps everyone else.
You're coming close to me! You're coming close to me!
Back off! Threaten me again!
Just wear the fucking mask, Karen! When people criticize this movie, people often compare it to Shinkai's last movie just 3 years ago. However, many people say that it is not fair to compare the two because they are different and it should be rated on its own because Kimi no Na wa just sets the bar way too high. You know, these guys might have a point. Hold on, let me go watch both movies real quick.
あの景色星が降ったことは全部夢だったんじゃないか。それはまるで今では思う。まるで東京や。
雨女には龍神系の視点がついてるのね。人の体に入ったもん。入れ替わりが不定期の仕事は雑用週に 2,3 度不意に訪れる。菅さんの身の回りの彼女は本当に 100% の晴れ女だった。君じゃないとないよ。
私でも私が戻ったらまた天気が。
もういい。
そろそろかな。
なんも適当や。そんな小屋に生まれ落ちた僕。
このものが海の入り江だったそうだよ。それを人間と天気が。
俺ひなさんと東京だっていつ消えてしまうかわからないと思うんです。だから御社を死亡いたしました理由は人が生活している風景が街の風景を自分の手で。東京だってひなさん僕たちはきっと君の大丈夫だ。世界が君。
Yeah guys, these two movies are so different. I did say I liked the song Celebration, but the other songs in this movie felt really out of place and disturbs the storytelling. This was a common complaint, also expressed in Kimi no Na wa, where the song Zen Zen Zense felt out of place with its heavy electric guitar riffs and Yojiro's voice sometimes overpowering the dialogue of the main characters. This style of montage and delivery really takes you out of your experience and reminds you that you're watching a movie and even feels like a music video. That's not to say that this style is bad, but when the songs are not placed correctly, you can really feel the difference. Like the song Sparkle, used in Kimi no Na wa, was really great. The last issue I have with the music is more of a disappointment of the result. In Kimi no Na wa, Radwimps is limited to the music that they compose themselves to Yojiro's voice. In this movie, however, another character from the music is introduced, Toko Miura. While watching, I was ecstatic to hear a female singer in this movie, because it meant that in the climax song, there could be a duet song. Sadly, this was not the case. In the climax scene, where Hina and Hodoka are falling through the sky, the song Grand Escape plays. The main singer is Toko Miura, and for 2 lines, Yojiro enters in the most distant and unrecognizable way possible with basically nonsense lyrics. To add insult, Yojiro faded out to a chorus background while Toko is still the main singer. Now, I know what you're going to say, this isn't some musical where the main characters will just start singing and dancing. Well, it doesn't have to be. Take Lion King's Can You Hear the Love Tonight? Simba and Nala are not the people singing in this song, but we still have a male and female singer singing in a duet to create a very memorable scene between the male and female characters.
but how to make her see the truth about my past.
I'm just saying, this had the potential to be a memorable duet, but instead we get something pretty forgettable attributed down to pop music overlaid in a movie. It's just disappointing because it's such an obvious decision to make when these people have complete artistic freedom and control to do so, but they just didn't. I'm going to introduce an idea called the unnecessary plot hole. Basically, a plot point that is introduced unnecessary because without it, the story would still have moved along without any changes. The gun presented in the show is one of the unnecessary plot holes in this story. The gun does nothing but give the illusion of danger, but is never really useful. The police are seemingly hunting down Hodaka because of the gun, but remember, Hodaka's parents filed a missing persons report anyways, so eventually he would have been pursued by them. The gun in the final scene does nothing in the standoff with the police either, because he ultimately throws it away while Keisuke and Niga tackle the police. This just made every scene with the gun feel cheap and escalated to a point where you're thinking, holy shit, this kid is going to die, or go to jail for life. But it never happens. Hodaka faces no consequences for it. Throughout the film, we are given cameo shots of the secondary characters of Kimi no Na and 2 scenes with explicit cameos of Mitsuha and Taki. Now, showing previous characters in his films is nothing new, but it is usually done with discretion not to distract you from the film, but for some reason, he just makes 2 blatant scenes here that just makes no sense. It also just adds a reminder how bland these 2 main characters are compared to Mitsuha and Taki, and further illustrates how it's almost impossible to not compare these 2 movies to another. Again, this is just another disappointment that had limitless potential but ultimately fell flat on its face. If the characters were replaced by a Randy, it wouldn't have mattered and the story would have carried on. So why am I saying this had great potential? Well, remember, Mitsuha is a magical shrine maiden with powers able to weave into her charms. We even have Mitsuha sell the ring Hodaka buys for Hina for her birthday as a confession present. While I was watching, I'm thinking, oh wow, that ring is going to have some important significance later on in the story as a symbol of their love that holds them together, right? Well, I was wrong. It was just another unnecessary plot hole. It did nothing, and it's never shown again. I don't think Shinkai is a prodigy at writing stories. His previous works are average at best in storytelling, but something tells me an executive leaned over Shinkai's shoulder and whispered, "Hey, top 10 anime crossovers. We'll make buckets." Which is hard to argue against because, well, they did. In the beginning of the movie, while Hodaka is still searching for work and housing, we see him carry a book, The Catcher in the Rye. It's weird to see this kind of detail because I've never seen a book like this so explicitly illustrated with little to no screen time after. So there's really 2 outcomes to this. Either Shinkai heard about The Catcher in the Rye and thought to himself, yeah, let's make a kid edgy like him. But he did not completely understand the themes and narratives of what made the book great in the first place. Or Shinkai wanted to bring an adaptation to this, but was stopped in his tracks by an executive that said, "Hey, what the fuck are you doing? That's nothing like your last movie. Just make Kimi no Na wa 2-point shit, and we'll make money." There's a high school kid named Holden who is failing at school and is expelled, so he runs away from that small town to New York. In New York, Holden experiences a seedy underbelly of adult life, entering nightclubs, viewing sex, drugs, and even encountering a prostitute before getting beat up by her pimp. Holden views the world very simplistically, where he sees the adult world as unnatural and tainted, while he sees children as pure. Holden dreams of himself in the field of rye, overlooking a cliff, where children are falling off, but Holden catches them before they fall. So basically, Holden views himself and his worldviews as righteous, and the antithesis of modern society, which he rejects. And he tries to preserve his values by saving the children from falling off the cliff into adulthood. In the end though, Holden realizes doing this action of trying to save children and viewing the world in black and white alienates himself from the world, and instead realizes adulthood is nothing to be feared. He starts to see the world as more grey than black and white. Comparing Tenki no Ko to the Catcher in the Rye, both characters leave their small town to the big city and encounter the underground of society being kicked and pushed around. They try to save the purity of people, but end up getting whipped for it. This would make sense as to why Hodaka is such a useless blob without character, as if Shinkai had planned to adopt Holden's character to him, but the idea was rejected. This is further emphasized that while we are given no backstory to Hodoka, in the one flashback, we see him beat up running away from something until he approaches a cliff, and pursues the idea of heading over the cliff to Tokyo, aka the adult world. This also fits better with the theme of the book instead of okay boomer and can't change the weather. The rain in this movie is always depicted as something in a violent nature, bringing pain to those it touches. Hina is the sunshine girl that acts like the Catcher in the Rye by preventing the rain from hurting people, but ends up hurting herself in the process. And in the end, Hina realizes she can't control how people experience life, and will just need to live life as it is. So it's a stretch of an idea, but I believe Shinkai actually tried to tell an adult-themed story, but was stopped in his tracks because of the success of Kimi no Nawa. In interviews, Shinkai also seems very critical and harsh of his own work, so I also wouldn't be surprised if during the movie he cared more about the reception of the movie if it took a more drastic turn from Kimi no Nawa than if he made a batshit crazy movie that was truly provocative. As mentioned before with the gun, Hodoka faces no consequences for the multiple laws and disorderly conduct he broke throughout the movie, besides a warning and a slap on the wrist. However, that's not even the worst decision Hodoka made. Hodoka made the decision to save Hina, but ultimately doomed Tokyo to being submerged. We see no consequences for that decision. The most we get is Grandma Tachibana has to live with her family in an apartment because her home got flooded, but people seem to be doing just fine. This really detracts from the ultimatum complex, where it really didn't matter if Hina chose to sacrifice herself or not. It still bothers me that Hodoka went back to his hometown and faced no consequences. Meanwhile, Hina has to live in Tokyo and see the flooding of her city every single day, while praying for the rain to go away, but ultimately failing for 3 years. I find it really odd Shinkai can just sit there and draw his city flooded by water with children laughing and playing. Meanwhile, in real life, there are actual floods that destroy lives and kill people. I can't even begin to imagine what it must feel like to be a victim of the 2011 earthquake and the Fukushima disaster and watch a movie just depict the destruction of a city with the consensus of shit happens. This movie is fine as an entertaining thing to watch a couple times, but definitely not something I would go out of my way to see or buy. The animation and storytelling just makes it entertaining enough to save this from becoming a bad movie. The characters are basically blobs, the structure is just a Chinatown Louis Vuitton bag of Kimi no Nawa, and the themes are just offensive. I hope Shinkai can actually consult with some people to help him with the direction of his next story, but I have a feeling he will just be the Michael Bay of anime at this point, where no matter how bad the story is, people who just want to see pretty animations will just say, "Ooh, pretty," and continue to pay to see his films. I'm giving this a 6 out of 10, thanks, bye.